I've been inspired by the phenomenon of murmuration for a really long time, and I did many drawings of it and small models inspired by it, and I couldn't really figure out how to take the ideas that I saw in it and really translate those into a three-dimensional piece. But the parts I was really inspired about was the idea that you have all these individual organisms, these small little birds, they're starlings, that they all come together, and when they're together they fly in this synchronization that is so beautiful. And I love just the concept of individual organisms, all the same thing, coming together and making something so much more beautiful and much greater than they themselves are individually. And when Christ Church came to me and gave me a commission to install a piece for their bicentennial, I talked to them and they said that one of the most important parts about their mission statement is that they have this big outreach program. And they've helped in the city of Cincinnati for 200 years with a homeless shelter and an after-school program and lots of different really incredible organizations. And so I love this idea of that these individual bird flocks, so to speak, are out there in the city of Cincinnati. And there's this interplay as the cathedral helps them. Those individuals come into the cathedral and bring their grace and their life into the cathedral. So it's this idea of this exchange of energy, and that all these different people, but they're all still people, just the way all the starlings are all birds, they all come together, and together they actually make something that's so much greater than their individual selves. My process is always, usually I start right in model. So we built a 3/16" model of this cathedral, and then I started playing with pieces of paper, hanging them in that space and figuring out shapes, and just to get a sense of what works in the space. When you're working in a model, you can get a sense of scale much better than if you're on a piece of paper. So this is clearly a really horizontal space. I'd worked in a cathedral before, which was a very vertical cathedral, so I had to start thinking in a totally different language. We had really very detailed drawings that Kina Park, my associate, created, and those are all CAD drawings. So every single bird in here was spec'd out. We know before we come in that we figured out everything we possibly can figure out, because there always are going to be surprises. So you don't want to add indecision on top of then a surprise being lobbed at you. Dan Harrington, who is my other assistant who was here, is incredible about organization, especially in terms of automation. It's like he could run an assembly line. He has a brain that figures out a sequencing of events and how long it's going to take each part of the process. They have this beautiful gym space in this building that it just feels very turn of the century. It's all wood floors, all wooden walls, and it has windows on 3 sides. We were all like, oh, this is like the dream studio. We set up large tables there, and we started unpacking the mesh panels of the birds, pulling the birds out of the mesh, so then we had a lot of, the background, so to speak. And then we began the process of attaching monofilament onto all the panels so that we had everything prepped. That took us about 10 days of work up in the gym, so that we wanted to have everything prepped so that when we came into the cathedral, we only had 5 days in here, that we were like ahead of the game as possible. We didn't want to be measuring any monofilament down here or cutting or any of that stuff. We wanted to have everything set to go because we knew that things were going to be tight on this end. So because of the whole outreach concept that I was latching onto, which is so much part of the cathedral, I decided to put a small flock of birds in each of the, 6 of the outreach centers that have had a long affiliation with the cathedral. And those birds were all stainless steel birds. So I went to those locations, and when I say a small flock, it was probably 12 to 18 birds. And I met with the director of each institution and figured out the best place to hang those birds. And when you come into the cathedral, since those outreach birds are all stainless steel, the first birds you see when you come into the cathedral, which are individually hanging, are also the stainless steel birds. And then as the birds swoop down into the space and start to make this circle around the cross, they transition into a color. They transition into copper and brass. which I really love, this idea that they come in one way, so to speak, and gathering together all together, they actually have a transformation and they turn into something else. The other thing that's really come across to me as I've been working on this piece is how we are all so interconnected. And I think there's so many breakthroughs in science talking about this now, and there's also breakthroughs in spirituality talking about this now, that we think we're all individuals and we're all on our individual path. But actually, as we are all learning, and I think we can even say that on a very personal level, we know that if we see someone near us suffering, it makes us suffer. And there's something very powerful about the whole idea that together we are so much stronger and healthier if we are together and healthy, if we do reach out and help someone else. And I think that's really what this cathedral has been about, is reaching out and helping other people to be altruistic and to be, you know, obviously a faith-based organization, and for all those reasons, but there's also the other side of it, that we're actually all stronger when we lift each other up. And that's what this piece embodies.